I believe we deserve, as game developers, stability, respect, but our business model's got to be sustainable or it's not a job. We built teams that were fully aligned with us culturally as far as building a respectful work environment, and then coming to the point of not having roles for them was personally and for the company very painful.
Hello and welcome to the Game Business Show. Today we are speaking to Harold Ryan, the CEO of ProbablyMonsters. You might have heard of Ryan. He was the former CEO of Bungie and oversaw the company during those heady Halo years and then the launch of Destiny. But you might not have heard of ProbablyMonsters, and that's because despite being 9 years old and featuring 3 different development studios, they've yet to actually release a game. Well, technically, they haven't released a game. ProbablyMonsters started out as a collection of studios, including the likes of Cauldron, BattleBard, and Hidden Grove. It also operated another studio called Firewalk, which it sold to Sony in 2023. Firewalk is the studio that developed the ill-fated Concord game, which was released last year, but it famously failed to find an audience and was promptly cancelled. Firewalk has since been closed down. Now, at last, ProbablyMonsters is revealing 2 games, a roguelike action game for Nintendo Switch and a psychological first-person horror game for PC. Those games are all interesting. That's all fascinating. But the reason why I was so eager to speak to Harold Ryan is because ProbablyMonsters was born during an entirely different era for this industry. A time when AAA was the big focus and there was a huge amount of money going around. In fact, ProbablyMonsters attracted $250 million during its Series A investment round. Back then, the vision for ProbablyMonsters was to build AAA games in a new way. We were focused on building a positive workplace culture. It talked boldly about changing the environment in which big games are being made, upheaving the traditional publishing and development model, and creating a sustainable future for all its employees. But that was a different time. The industry has changed a lot. AAA is now super challenging. And as a result, ProbablyMonsters has had to cancel projects, laid off employees, and had to bring its business closer together. That's not going to help build confidence in its vision for a positive culture and a sustainable future. So I wanted to ask Ryan now, how has ProbablyMonsters adapted? Does any of the original vision still exist today? And how does this company full of AAA veterans view the state of the business in 2025? So without further ado, here is my interview with ProbablyMonsters CEO Harold Ryan. So Harold, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I'm excited to share what we've been building at ProbablyMonsters, and really excited to talk about the company a little bit, but also to announce that we're shipping 2 games this fall.
Oh, this fall?
Yeah.
Wow. Well, yeah, tell us about these games then. Let's get into it. What are you announcing?
Let me get a little preface into where we're at, because there's been a bunch of news about what we were doing in the past as a company, and I kind of want to, clear the air, set the stage as we think about it. For us, it's an important moment as a company. Our first 2 games are coming to market now as we do this. And, when we started, we had the vision of building a place that would be sustainable, that would be a place that would, provide a better place for game developers to work. It was the whole reason I, started doing this. And we were structured, building a bunch of independent studios. And really, they were built and structured with the idea of building teams and games that would be signed to what you would consider a sort of old school AAA publishers. And while we still have the same goals for developers working in an environment that, feels respectful and is predictable, we're taking a very different path to it. And we've gone through a bunch of hard decisions getting here. We've had to cancel games, we've transitioned teams. And I think when the industry really kind of went through a big evolution from kind of 2020 until, a couple of years ago or today, depending on how you count the clock, we had to evolve too. And so, if we were talking back in 2020, I would have said, hey, we've got, AAA publishing deals signed, we're building, big games, and all of our games are built that way. I would say today, I think for the industry, for us, one size fits all isn't the way we're going. I think it's not the right way to go. And so we're still building what I would call long-term games, but also building midterm and short-term games. And the 2 games I want to talk about today a little, one of them is a short-term game. It's called Stormlancers. It's coming out on the Nintendo Switch.
Oh.
It's a fast action, super bright, fun to play, side-scrolling roguelike that you get to run through. And it's bringing back couch co-op, which I'm really excited to see on the Switch. I love playing that with my friends and family just in one room. The game's really fun for that. The other game that's more of what we would call a midterm game for us is called a Prologue. we kind of think of it as maybe this is the pilot episode for what we hope is a longer running franchise. It represents a little more time and investment into a game than a short-term game would to us. It's a psychological horror game where you're first person delving in to solve a mystery all while being hunted by this sinister monster as you go through it. And it's first person, it's coming to PC. You play it on Steam and Epic Game Store. And so those are the games as we get there.
So excuse me if I'm being naive. What do you mean by short-term and mid-term?
I think a short-term game for us, I would say, first really is quantified by taking a game idea you're inspired by and looking at the tools and tech that are available to today and going, what would this be if it was a game we shipped next holiday? And so for us, for our short-term games, they're really games where we're looking at, less than 18 months of development time.
Wow.
And I think for both the games that are coming out this fall, they're very approachable, easy for consumers to play and hopefully love. But, we have to wait for that part. And both at a $19 price point.
Really?
And both games, we think a skilled user in the genre can finish the first time through probably in less than 10 hours. We think they're games where you can find more depth when you play. And certainly when we're talking the side-scrolling roguelike, it's a very replayable, very fun round after round game as you go into it.
This seems to me quite the pivot from, I was reading all the old press releases, all the old stories that we wrote about it. It was AAA, big games, AAA development veteran talent, such as yourself, obviously. Mm-hmm. I know the market's changed. I know we can probably talk about that. But is that vision, you've had to change all of that?
In our long-term games, you're still going to see games that have bigger investments, games that probably have bigger teams. So I think today for us, when we talk about the best path to market for a game, in the old school AAA space, it would be, build a studio, right? Hire 75, 100 or more, depending on what publisher you're building for. And then, train that team to ship the game you're going to ship. And I think that takes a long time. There were a couple of op-eds I did when we announced back in the day about the pluses and minuses of AAA. And really, the goal of the end was to start with AAA under the assumption that that was the safest path to take to get the company established. That bigger budgets would allow us to have good benefits and good quality of life and more predictability. And certainly it's a space that I felt like I understood pretty well based on my background and have good relationships in the industry to help move that kind of thing forward. But yeah, I think the first few years of the company for sure, and we had great success signing AAA deals, and we have great teams and great projects underway. But the market moved, and I think today we'll still build long-term games and mid and short. But I think the world today is one where the best path to market is also identifying the best resources, and those resources might literally be just about anywhere as you go through it. And I think that's part of the evolution in the industry since 2020. Game developers are working from all kinds of places they weren't working from before, and tools and tech have allowed us to, connect in real time to people all over the world, which has really opened the door to, pulling the right talent into the games at the right time.
Last time we spoke, this is quite a while ago now, it was the sale of Firewall to PlayStation. And obviously that's, I feel terrible for them, but it's become the big warning sign for the industry, what happened to Concord last year. Were you already on this path before that happened, or was that a warning to you as well?
You could see the environment shifting in the entire industry, even leading up to that terrible outcome.
Yeah.
The shift in consumer behavior has really changed. I think digital sales that spiked from everyone being at home for a couple of years, and other pieces have really changed, the power of AAA publishing in some way. But yeah, I think we were definitely eyes open to it and thinking about it. Back then, we didn't recognize it as much, and it led to us. We had, as I said, we had great games, great teams going, and lots of interest from publishers, but not the level of commitment we needed to be able to bring the games we had in development then to market.
I do worry a little bit in that, this trend. And I think it's I'm hearing around it all over the place. All the time we're talking about the fact that, I had recent interview that we did last week was with Pull Up Entertainment. They've got 50 games coming. Not a single one of them would they class as AAA.
Mm-hmm.
One of their games is Space Marine 2, which isn't which isn't a cheap game, but it's obviously not the super high-end AAA games. And they're talking about how, you can do a game like that can do AAA numbers if you do something small and focused and very well and reach those audiences. And I think that's great. And there's a lot of people adopting that approach. But I do worry a little bit that we're all assuming AAA can't work at all anymore when we've just had Assassin's Creed Shadows do well, Monster Hunter was. I'm not saying that's what you're thinking. You've got a big challenge in the sense that you're new, right? I know you've been around for nearly 10 years now, but you're trying to launch new things and do new stuff, which is it's even harder if you add that on top of AAA, and that's really difficult. But I do worry a little bit that we're talking ourselves out of ever making those big budget games outside of the massive franchises. I hope that's not the case.
Yeah, I mean, I think games absolutely should come in the right size for the game and with the right team to bring it to market. And I agree. I hope to see room in the market for small, successful games and for big, successful games as they go through. I think the important thing for me, I've always believed that, when you're as a team, like shipping games is an important part of the learning cycle, whether you're the QA team or the IT team or the game development or the release manager, like it's all getting a game successfully into the hands of a player in a way that works to their delight is not a simple process. And it's also not one size fits all. Sitting and learning that evolution as how people are connected change, as their medium changes for where they're playing and consuming is a constant reinvention, evolution challenge as you're going to market. And I think it's getting that muscle developed so that you're doing that. And that cycle of game concept to in consumers' hands, okay, what would you do differently now when you look back is a really important cycle of learning as a team when you're shipping. And I had the benefit early in my career of being in a place where I shipped, over 30 games in 10 years. I think we shipped 5 Halo games in 10 years.
That's amazing, isn't it?
I think a lot of our strength was we had been through the cycle so many times that as a team, we knew how to respect each other when we had to make hard decisions that got us to the point of successfully getting to a consumer. And it's not to say you don't have struggles along the way, but if you don't have that experience as a team, I think you're missing something that's a key part of getting there. And it's one of the real challenges. I think it's why we all have to chase sustainability is you have to be able to keep your team together to run through that learning cycle. That's definitely a real focus for us is to get back to something that we can believably, look at teams and greenlight their games and see a real path to market for their games as they get there.
I realise that we're taking a sort of slightly negative tone, well, I am anyway, with the questioning. And obviously this is a good moment. It's a big moment because you are announcing games and it's been a long time coming, getting to this point. I'll ask a bit about them though. What makes you confident in them that makes you think these games got something about them? These might resonate.
For one, I think you look at Stormlancer's coming out on the Switch, it's fun, it's vibrant, it sounds great. It's actually fun to sit and hear the sounds and the music as you go through. I think everything you look for in a 80s cartoon inspired, it's bright, it's vibrant, it's great solo. But to me, that couch co-op experience when it's a game that manages that experience well is really something that helps push through. And we do user research testing as well on top of just do I like the game is maybe not the ultimate question for it, but we're getting great feedback. We're moving our way through it, but it's also a game that we built it for a particular audience. It's got a very focused design for it, and the goal is for it to be delightful for that audience. And I think you'd love everyone to like everything you ever build, but I think it's one of the core focuses for us in this shift is we're picking an experience and an audience, and then building something that we think, is approachable, consumable for them, something they're going to feel like they get real value out of when they play it. And that audience having delight in the game is enough to keep the game team moving on to the next game. And we're already in the point where we've greenlit the next 2 short development game cycles for next holiday are greenlit and in concept development. And so that that team's excited because they've got a game coming out and they know they've got another game to work on. And so I believe part of that passion and excitement out of the creators to be in some ways in the driver's seat of bringing delight to their audience, but being in the driver's seat of being able to learn and push that forward to the next game is a big part of why I think they're going to continue to execute all the way up until, the final handoff to the consumer as we go.
I love that because I talked about this a little bit on the show recently. We sort of got into a situation where every game that we were making had to be like perfect and had to deliver everything all at once. When, you talk about those early Halo days, I'm sure there were loads of things you wanted to go into Halo 1 or Halo 2 that's like, you know what, we've got another game 2-3 years away. We'll just save a lot of this stuff for the next one. We can ship this. There's almost an iterative approach to game development, which is actually really nice. Often I find the second game in any franchise can be the peak game in that franchise because it has all the things they couldn't get into the first game. And then also they tweak all the things that people, didn't like quite so much or whatever. And that ability to just feel like I've got another one coming around the corner rather than these 5, 6, 7 year.
I agree. I think you have the constant question of like, well, what are they going to like? When people are playing this game, what do they want more of? Where did we understand the game? And they're not quite there. And so we should move it a little bit for them. And then there's also, I think a lot of times, and this has been true for a lot of the games I've shipped, and it's true for our games as well, where there's a lot more behind the game as you get there, and so it helps with continuity. It helps pull you through. It doesn't mean every game we're doing is a sequel, but the second game, or a Prologue, we think of a lot like a pilot for a TV series, and it's a full standalone polished game on its own, but the mythos behind it is a deeper lore. And so as you're in and going through this psychological horror game and you're working through and solving all the mysteries put in front of you and based on the way people play it, getting scared a few times, I think we highly recommend putting on some headphones and sitting in a dark room and playing the game. But the hidden depth that sits behind a game, when you think about it that way, when you think about the world that the game sits in, it adds little components of clarity, of continuity that you might not even realize when you're going through it. But it's a real opportunity to pay that off for the consumer that really finds the game and loves the game as they go. And that one in particular, you can never promise before the games are done they're going to ship, but we're already looking at, for lack of a better word, what the next chapter might be for that story. Like how does that world unfold to the player? And in the model we're applying beyond these first two games, we have long and mid and short-term games in development as well. We've got an open world RPG that's super fun and beautiful, and can't wait till we can talk about that. We've got a co-op Souls-like that is amazing and fun to play, and an extraction base builder that's fun and fits in the right space, and I think is actually going to be, I think all of the games have a really good chance of finding an audience where the games succeed, and let us keep our teams moving forward on those games as they come to market.
You hadn't broken cover back in 2016, but it's been 9 years. It's been a long time coming, these titles. And I guess Concord is sort of one of your own, even though, it stopped being at some point. But it feels to me like, oh, finally, and I don't mean that in a mean way, but in like it must be a relief to actually be able to show something rather than just be talking about what Probably Monsters is trying to do. Is that how it feels to you?
Yeah. I mean, I think for me, I'm the most relieved for our teams, for them, the effort, the passion, the desire to build something that people are going to play is left unfulfilled until that moment of shipping the game. And certainly for me, one of my predominant goals for starting Probably Monsters was in hopes that I could help, fund, raise up, teach, train, whatever the right level of involvement was, but a new generation of developers. Because I think there's, to me in 2016, 2017, I felt like there was a new generation of developers that could really use the opportunity to learn how to build new IP, that could learn how to pick a focus for a player experience and hold to it. And the challenges of staying on vision, of keeping your team together from conception all the way through launch, of navigating the challenges of actually bringing a game to market, those aren't simple challenges to go after. One of my goals has been to see as many people as possible successful at doing that in a way that, is rewarding. I'm playing the games on a regular basis, and I've been deeply involved in, the concept reviews and other cases, but these games are built by the teams that are building them. And, I'm proud of what they've accomplished, and I'm excited for me as the CEO, but I'm more excited for the team members, for everyone else working in the company, to see too what I think are very focused but very polished and great games come to market. I think learning from this release and hopefully using it to achieve sustainability for all of our teams at Probably Monsters, and helping us to grow and hopefully employ as many game developers as we can, responsibly and successfully is certainly I think should be the goal of every CEO.
Are you still set up the same? Is it 3 studios and a central organization in the middle, or have you shifted that?
I think a part of our shift, when we early on we were building with the primary goal of signing to publishers, we were very much built more so with a central hub of business and finance and IT and security and all those sort of pieces, but really building the teams as standalone or potentially standalone studios. And I'd say today our dev teams still have identities, but they're not structured. They're definitely much more integrated into our central teams. We have more direct development support than we did when we were doing independent games, and a lot more cross-team integration for technology and creative support and others. We go through it. When you're signing to a AAA publisher, they want to put walls around your team and your game, and they have their own rules for how they want things to go. And so I think today we're a much more integrated company.
Okay. Our
teams are certainly smaller than they would have nominally been back then. And I'd say our partnerships are deeper.
So are those different entities, is all under Probably Monsters now? I didn't notice on the website.
All under me now, yeah. When we started, they were actually subsidiary LLCs of the company, in part because that was a cleaner structure. We had, different major publishers. We had deals signed at one point, were signed or negotiated with several of the large traditional AAA publishers, and they don't like their peanut butter mixing with the other person's chocolate.
Yeah, of course, yeah. But so what happened there then, Harold? Like, what? I mean, I know you don't want to go into all of the details, but you've gone through this journey. We're born during a different time, right? In different industry. And you've gone through COVID and you've gone through a boom and an absolute contraction. So I understand why you've had to react. And I think it's actually great that you have, because there's others that just haven't and find themselves in difficult situations. But what's happened then when you had some of these games signed and things and they've sort of fallen through? Is it just that publishers have got their scale back, as we've seen across the whole business?
I think through that cycle, publishers have scaled back. Their number of third-party deals they do has gotten a lot lower. The funding commitments have gotten harder to come by in that space. And there are fewer AAA publishers today than there were in 2017 with, the acquisitions at Microsoft. Mm-hmm. But I think overall, the real driver of it, without casting blame on them for pulling back on their business, is the consumer behavior doesn't match a one-size-fits-all model. And the critical point there is to, when you look at a game and look at an opportunity with an audience, to pick the right path to get to that experience to that audience, which is a big reason why we're, long, mid, and short-term games for us.
It's interesting you use the word short term. I've not heard that terms before, but a lot of the term people use is like AA and AAA. I actually don't like those terms, because I find you play a game like, I mentioned Space Marine 2 earlier, but like Expedition 33, you play a lot of these games, and it's not that they're any less quality than AAA games. It's just that they don't do everything, right? They do a few things really well, and it's off that experience in itself is a AAA experience. But because it doesn't do everything, it's not, let's say, classed in that, it didn't take 6-7 years to make. It didn't require hundreds of employees to work on it. I do feel like those terms have become a little bit of a noose in a way, and probably set expectations wrong.
What's the definition of a AAA game? Like, is it budget? Is it spend? Is it size of team? Or is it financial success after you're done? There are games I love in the market that didn't polish all their features, didn't, all the things that go through it. And they're massively financially successful too. And then you're like, What do you call a game that didn't attempt to polish all, or what do you call a AAA game that launches that's got, all kinds of visual defects and other pieces that go in it? And I think for me, I think it's really more appropriate to step back and go, well, what's the right focus for the consumer you want to build, and what's the best path to get there? And and I think the first healthy question to ask in game development is, well, do I need to do R&D to bring this idea to market, or can I do it with the existing tools and technology? And can I bring this game vision to life on today's platform?
I'm dying to know, how are you approaching publishing? Is it you're doing it yourself? Is that the way you're doing it?
I think we don't rule out the right partnerships for the right game, but I think when you look at the games coming out this holiday, we're the ones putting them out. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, okay. You working with agencies and partners on it, or you got some internal resource? I'm just interested.
Across the board, from concept to market, we're looking for the right support at the right time all over the board. And so we have partners in just not every aspect of what we do, and a core team of brilliant individuals that are driving everything forward as well.
Obviously, one of your visions front and center was about building a strong, positive culture within your teams, trying to create a changing of the environment, how these video games are made. Obviously, you've had to realign your business. You've got smaller teams. You've had to make cuts. You've had to make changes. Has that set back that goal?
Yeah, I think dealing with the realities of changing the size and scope of teams and even the targets for what they were building hasn't changed that goal. It has certainly put some heavy marks on the board against, hey, you haven't proven it yet. And when you transition team sizes, game types, development schedules, and even when we started, we were pretty geolocated in and around Bellevue for all of our teams as we got started. And today, when you look at the teams where, we have some geolocated teams, but we have a lot of people that are working from all over. That just unfortunately meant we didn't necessarily have the right job for everyone that we had employed back then. And that was probably the hardest part of getting to that, the realization that we had to drastically evolve to match where we felt like the industry was going, is recognizing that to be meaningful as a game developer, you've got to build and ship video games. And as a pre-revenue company, our investor group is 100% behind our cultural goals. The first conversations I had with them before they invested was about culture. And so they're not leaning on us to, get there. They want us to have a long-running, sustainable business. They want it to be profitable as well down the road, but they're fully supportive of the cultural goals. But we're in such a different form today that it has been painful. I mean, it's hard to look at the people who deserve the world. They're hardworking. We built teams that were fully aligned with us culturally, as far as building a respectful work environment, and then coming to the point of not having roles for them was personally and for the company very painful. I think that I think you get to that point of needing to evolve and needing to change. Because we've got 2 games coming, because the other games coming under our new structure feel great, they're moving well. I think we're going to reliably ship multiple games a year for the next few years.
Oh wow!
And learn as we go. And so that if you get knocked down, do you get back up and try to find a path? The North Star is still there. Like I believe we deserve, as game developers, stability, respect. But our business model's got to be sustainable, or it's not a job. And getting to that sustainable model, I think it's going to take learning. And by shipping 2 games, we're going to have the right opportunity to learn.
Yeah, it's going to be really important. How big is the company now? Are you allowed to say?
We're about 200 full-time employees in the company today.
Okay, and you work on quite a few, multiple titles a year. It's that's quite a lofty. Well, I don't know if it's a lofty goal. It's certainly something I don't expect to hear from companies these days. There's a company in the UK that I'm really a fan of that told me their plan was to release a game every year. Yeah, they did it for about 2 years, and it's been about 5 years since they released one. But I guess these things happen.
I look forward to the day when all of the leaders we have at the company for games have an opportunity to ship their games. But there are people coming through doing this that have a ton of experience in building and shipping, and I think you'll see in the press release when you get it, the Jim Vievert's one of what we call the role general manager if they're leading game development for us, but he's been in the industry a long time. He's shipped a lot of games. He's lived in mobile for a couple of years, and he's one of the main ones, looking at how do I ship a game every year. And I think his experience, I think part of that, looking at the goal and picking the right team to do it is about picking someone who has the expertise to get in there and go. And and so we're very focused there at the leadership side. When you look at Ira Prologue coming out. The GM for that was the Matt Case. He was the head of interactive at HBO for a few years, and the lead writer on it has written for me for, I don't know, 15 or more years. And head of story, and he's amazing and prolific, and that, like, I think you pair people who can execute and can lead in that way, and the other teams that are in development have similar humans who we won't name today, but their goal, which I love, is to be a core of a senior team and then to pull up a new generation of developers with them as they bring their games to market. And that's really how when we think about our long-term games, that's absolutely a big part of our focus, is really lining that up to teach and train as we move. It's been super rewarding. And, I think when you get to see those games, my hope is that 2 years from now, we're looking at a bunch of games in market, without giving it a hard number, and really establish something that's sustainable and turns out games that delight their users.
I was going to ask one last question, which was like, what is the Probably Monsters vision now? But I don't know did you just answer that question?
Yeah, I think unite, guide, and empower talented development teams, and I think ultimately to really find sustainability in game development in today's world.
Well, thank you, Harold. Thank you for your time, and good luck with the announcement and for the launch. I didn't expect them so soon.
Thank you. And I appreciate your time and having me on.
Some really fascinating stuff there from Ryan. Clearly a challenging few years for the Probably Monsters team, but hopefully with these 2 games, we'll start seeing some positive results. That's it for today's episode of The Game Business Show. If you want to make sure you never miss an episode, head to thegamebusiness.com and stick in your email, and you'll receive an alert every single time we put something out. We'll be back later in the week with our usual news and analysis show. Until then, thank you for tuning in. What is the greatest movie trilogy of all time?
I would say Star Wars.
Any particular Star Wars trilogy?
If you have to ask.
The original trilogy, yeah. PC or console?
Well, I have to say console.
Will game streaming ever become a mainstream proposition?
It will be a mainstream proposition, but you're always going to be able to do better with local compute.
Will Nintendo Switch 2 outsell Switch 1?
I think it will.
What's the first thing you do when you come into work in the morning?
The first thing I do when I come into work in the morning is walk around the building and say hello to everyone that's in.
And if you could be the CEO of any other video game company in the industry, which one would it be?
That's a tough question. I don't know how they're all actually working inside.
You can skip it if you want.
Okay, I'll skip it.